Yes, I just had my second year of PhD at EMT Atlantic. Today I'm gonna talk about variational data assimilation using vessel trackings data. This work has been done in the context of my thesis with at EMT on a society which is Eodin, located in Brest, that has been founded 5 years ago. And the goal of this society is to exploit vessel tracking data to produce geophysical fields such as current surface velocity fields. And to do that, we used what we called AIS data for automatic identification systems. This system is mandatory for the boat since 2004. It has been used for safety reasons to avoid collision between boats, and it involves typically hundreds of millions of messages each day. So when you are at sea, a boat sends information to its environment, to the other boat, and those informations constitute an AIS message that typically contains the identifiant of the boat, the time of the emission of the message, the GPS position of the boat, and the speed of the boat overground, so what we call GPS speed. And sometimes it can also contain interesting information regarding to the inversion of current velocity, such as the heading of the boat. So what is the heading? It denotes the direction of the boat towards the surface of the sea. So using this information, we can derive a simple linear model of observation. You can think about if you were looking at someone who will be swimming on a river, if you would like to compute its velocity relatively to the ground, you will say it's the velocity of the swimmer relatively to the surface of the speed plus the current of the river. We do exactly the same here, and under an ideal case. So if the weather is not too stormy, we say that we have this linear relation between the GPS speed, so the speed of the boat towards the surface of the Earth, and the surface of the current and the surface of the speed of the boat towards the surface of the sea. So if you only have one observation, you can derive a linear system that is not invertible because you have an infinite number of solutions. But if you have many, you can give a solution in the sense of a least square estimation directly. And doing that, you can invert current for when you aggregate observation to a pixel width, for example, you can try to invert the current. So this leads to a classical ill-posed problem, inverse problem, because if you focus on only one pixel, you may have no existence or uniqueness of the solutions under the linear model of observations. And observations involve an irregular time space sampling because the traffic, the observations are concentrated alongside high density traffic areas. So this is what we obtain when we try to invert directly the current in a region of the Agulhas current in South Africa. So you have something which is noisy, and you still have some gap to fill. What is more, in a previous work, we observed that the performance of this approach is highly dependent of the conditioning of the linear system associated to observations. And when there is a stormy weather, boats tend to follow directions that are close each other. So that leads to have observations that are highly linearly dependent, and this model underperformed when compared to classical estimation of currents using altimetry and satellites. So when we have such a problem, what we do is we add a regularization term, and we state that the current velocity or the geophysical field of interest is computed using a minimization procedure using your favorite algorithm such as gradient descent. So we are going to minimize the variational cost, and what we are going to address here is the designing of the regularization term. So for having a good regularization term, we consider all the prior information about our problem. We know that, for example, current fields are structured objects, so we may not have to explore the whole space of image because if you take the space of image, you are able to discriminate something which is a current field from something which is not a current field. So that's a common idea in machine learning, is that there is a manifold, a lower dimensional manifold that could contain and express all the current fields. Another prior information we have is that two observation at time xt and an observation at time xt plus 1 should be close in a sense. That the physicians addressed this problem for decades and decades by developing a nonlinear partial differential equation that links observations in the space and time. And we keep in mind that when we try to recover current field, we have this kind of prior that we would like to recover. So to do this, we are gonna focus on a prior that will be learned using deep learning methods. And the idea is that we cannot really use supervised learning methods because we never know what is the true state. So we are going to use our linear model of observations, and we will try to use external source of data, for example, to regularize our problem. So to do this, we are going to use two different tools, a generative model in a part and something that we call a neural ODE in other parts. So what is a generative model? It's a specific deep learning model that addresses the learning of PDF distributions of phenomena from data. So here we focus on what we call a variational autoencoder. It's a kind of classical autoencoder where you have an input, which is typically a high-dimensional field. You try to project this input in a low-dimensional space, and then you try to reconstruct the input. So the linear version of this kind of architecture will be a PCA, for example. In the VAE, you introduce the stochastic encoder and decoder, and you enforced the geometry of the latent space to be typically Gaussian. So when it's learned, you also have a statistical prior about the data. So this is the loss associated to an autoencoder. Here you can see that you have a callback-Hilbert term. It measures the divergence between the encoded data and the data you would like to enforce on the latent space, so typically a Gaussian. And on the left side, it is just the reconstruction cost that you have on a classical autoencoder or PCA. And this loss constitutes a lower bound on the data likelihood. So when trained, you now have two things. You have a way to reproduce sampling data using a low-dimensional representation, and you also have information about the statistical prior on your data. This framework is also appealing for data assimilation because it has interesting properties. If you think about taking, for example, the average of two geophysical fields, in example, an observation as time t, an observation as time t plus 10, it will not look like a current field. You have no convex structure on the space of image, but you have it, a kind of it in the latent space. So if I'm trying to here it is an example, it's a class material from Stefan Mala of a variational encoder trained on a dataset of bedrooms. And as we can see, if I took 2 points of the latent space and I evaluate all the points using the decoder that are on the segment and the line between those 2 points, I still have something that looks a bedroom. So that's interesting in the context of a data assimilation. We could propose to use it directly by adding the reconstruction cost associated to the autoencoder. For example, here I show you an experiment. I consider the logo of IMT seen as a 2D manifold of the plane. I sample point around this logo and I try to learn an autoencoder. What happened is you have a low reconstruction cost alongside the high density data point, and the cost is higher where no data were shown. So why do we have this kind of loss? In fact, we are trying to construct a kind of bijection between a 1D space and 2D space, so that's not possible. And so we have something which is contractive alongside the data. So if you think about the gradient flow associated to this graph, it will be attractive into a high density data area. So we could try to use it directly in the optimization procedure. But instead, in what follows, we will try to consider only the decoder part as a kind of nonlinear dictionary to express our current velocity field. So we will gonna perform the minimization over the latent space instead of exploring the whole grid space. That was for the generative model part. What we would like also is taking account of the temporality of the data. There have been recent work that links directly the field of machine learning to the field of optimal control theory that allows us to compute adjoint. So we are gonna say that our current field can be well approximated by decoded ordinary differential equations. So to take account of the temporality of our data. So you can think it as a kind of 4D var simulation with a model that acts on a low-dimensional manifold. And we propose to jointly learn the representation while solving the targeted inverse problem. So we are going to identify both the parameters of the neural network and the initial conditions. What is more, as you have previously seen, AIS involves irregular sampling. So we propose to use external datasets of currents that we think that as plausible. For example, you can think as a numerical simulation or reanalysis product to perform the training of the variational encoder and having something which is consistent with big datasets that are available on the internet. What is more, I made a reference to a previous work at EMT. We have to keep in mind something. It is that the dynamics related over the latent space doesn't not only rely on what it is observed. So typically in ocean, the dynamic process involved parts that are never observed. So you have, for example, Navier-Stokes equation coupled with temperature, with a lot of variables that that may be not observed during with your sensors. So we say that the system is non-autonomous, and we add variables on the latent space to design our architecture and carefully take account of this fact. To show you some results, we consider a dataset of 4 million of AIS messages on the area of Agulhas Current in South Africa, which is known as a challenging region to reconstruct current velocity using altimetry-based technique. And as an external dataset of representation, we consider the GLORIS reanalysis product. It is a product that used altimetry observation and Navier-Stokes equations for explaining the current fields. We perform integration using 8-day windows of observation. So each 8 day we have to identify the initial condition, and the latent space dim was fixed to 50 for the decoder part and 10 for the additional for the augmented part of the latent dimension. So we considerably reduced the dimension of the optimization problem by a factor of 1,000 almost. And this is the result. So we split our dataset in 3 periods. We consider a first period during the summer, a second period, which is a transition period that corresponds to autumn or winter, and a third period that corresponds to a winter period. And the optimization and the inversion of currents using AIS was challenging with classical methods because there are many weather, so many storms. So that was a little bit hard, but As we can see, with respect to in situ data provided by a dataset of drifters, our method leads to significant gains over the baseline product that relied on the optimal interpolation method and the satellite altimetry-based product that also relied on optimal interpolation. So here are examples of the current field that we obtain. On top left, you have the Aviso product, which is based on altimetry. Top right, you have the direct observation using the linear model of observation of AIS using optimal interpolation shame. On bottom left, you have a shame that will only use AIS data on non-glorist, and on right, you have the proposed shame that both use AIS and glorist for the encoder part. So we have significant gain in terms of RMSO with drifters over the period that you can see at screen. These are some complementary results when compared to altimetry with the meridional and zonal velocity. So there is an interest in using these data because when you think about altimetry, you only observe the vorticity part, the geostrophic part, and here we does not have such assumptions. So we have a direct observation, and we are able to easily compute current fields that, for example, are divergent. We are gonna in the future external work to work on the assimilation associated to on the error associated to the assimilation shames. We also have some issues due to the fact that VAE framework is known to produce blurry image. And we also would like to consider the possibility to merge sensors, for example, use altimetry and AIS data to compute current velocity fields. So we could compute, for example, the geostrophic part of using an n-modes decomposition on a specific network for the altimetry data and the total current, as we done here with the AIS data. So this is the end.
Thank you very much. I think we have a lot of time for questions. Maybe I can start.
Yes.
Okay. I have a few questions about your variational approach, because you said that you use a variational approach. Tell me if I understood correctly. I think so. You try to, as you are doing a variational approach, you are trying to estimate the initial condition of your system at the previous time, and then you try also to estimate the parameters. And if I understand correctly, also you are doing your you are trying to use neural network to code the adjoint used in the variational approach, right?
Yes. Right.
Okay. Regarding the adjoint, can you be more specific? Can you explain me again? I'm not sure to understand everything.
The adjoint is computed using the neural ODE framework, so it's computed directly by automatic differentiation, in fact, in this framework.
Okay, so you use the automatic differentiation. So this is one of the quality of the neural network, and okay, and so this is corresponding to the adjoint. Okay, and yes, so you say that your minimization is in a latent space.
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, it's 50 plus 10 dimensions.
Yes.
And I would like to know if you had a look at these latent variables, and do they mean something? For instance, the 50 variable, do they physically mean something? Did you try to have a look at that? And I'm also curious about the augmented space. Is it really necessary? Is it improving a lot the results?
So we explored this question, yes. For example, there have been some work done with the Lorentz that shows that we have to augment the space when you only partially observe some components. In our work, we also try different parameters, and we show that if you don't add this augmented latent space, you tend to underperform relatively to in situ data. So we have to perform much more experiment, but it seems to be the case. So we take account of previous work done here at EMT, but experimentally we show that it's also the case.
Okay.
And the question of the interpretation of latent representation, it may be, I will say no, because you have a kind of black box thing associated to the neural networks. But the thing is that if you consider why using a latent representation or low-dimensional representation, it seems to be something that it's quite natural. If you think about the fishermen, when they are going at sea, they only consider two variables, which is the tidal coefficient and the tidal hours. So it's a kind of low-dimensional representation of the current that they use almost every day. So, but we lose the physical maybe interpretation on the mode due to the nonlinearity of the decoder.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, we still have time for question.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
Yep. I'm Arata Memia from RIKEN, so thank you for interesting talk. I'd like to ask about training.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I understand correctly, but I guess you put some time series data for training, and
Yeah.
so I'd like to ask how long was them?
So
Yeah. So did you separate the original time series into shorter time series data for training?
So the results you've shown only focus on the training set. I will give a few more about the test set later. The idea is for the AAS part, we consider short windows because we have not
Yeah.
a really large data set, so we consider the windows of 80 days, so which is not really huge when compared to the external product where we use 20 years of data. But we also perform the cross-validation. So, for example, we can try to train a neural network using these procedures, and then understand what happens when you try to solve the inverse problem on unseen data. So, for example, you train on the first 80 days, and you try to solve the targeting inverse problem at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We show that we have better results when compared to optimal interpolation. But we underperform when compared to the training set because we lose many degree of freedom. For example, we don't have the parameters of the neural network as a degree of freedom for the optimization. But what is interesting is that in terms of in situ data, we are able to recover structure quite good, and even in a low dimensional setting, and we still have a short improvement over optimal interpolation when looking at generalization capacity.
Yeah.
About 20%.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Simon, I have a practical question about your results, because I think there are a lot of fishermen in Japan, and they are using this system because I think it's a worldly wide system, AIS.
Yeah.
And so do you have some connection with Japanese companies or people interested in Japan to have surface currents using your method?
Not yet. I think that something which will be interesting is, using this approach, you can compute divergence of current, and I think that could depict upwelling areas. So that could be something which will be relevant for fishermen in the work, because you know that on the upwelling areas you may have more fish, for example.
Mhm. And this is an important issue of the current altimetry, is that you don't have, due to the way of sampling the data, you don't have any information close to the zonal, to the coast, and so and also in the river, of course, and in the lake, and there are some big lakes in Japan, especially in the Biwa Lake. So I think John is working in the Biwa Lake. And is it possible to? I think it's possible to use your methodology to estimate currents using vessels in lakes. And did you try to do that in your company, or are there some people working on that?
We don't have a data set of lakes, but I think it will be really interesting. Yeah. If someone would like to invest this work, I would be fine to interest also. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any
I just have a
question?
question. Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
So Benedict Madon, I have a question related to that for rivers. Like, have you started to work on riverine ports, such as Sevilla, for example?
No, we don't have tried to do that. This is only due to the fact that we do not have yet a data set on rivers, but what we could do. I think it's challenging because you are not have a high diversity of the trajectories on rivers, but it may be possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Benedict. Okay. So maybe we can stop the discussion, or do you want to say something more, Simon?
Oh, that's fine for me.
Okay, thank you again for your presentation.